Okay, since I'm all done with Indiana Jones books, it's time to talk about a screenplay. This is Indiana Jones and the City of the Gods, a screenplay for the fourth movie written by Frank Darabont. Yep, that guy. So just to summarize this quickly, George Lucas had the idea for Indy 4 with aliens since the 90s, and there were multiple scripts, and this is the script from Frank Darabont in 2003. Allegedly. I don't know if this is actually the real thing. Apparently, some people working on the production said, yeah, this is the third draft that Darabont sent to George Lucas, but Lucas himself and Lucasfilm and Darabont have never commented on this, if this is actually, like, legit, this leak. I think. Again, just disclaimer, I didn't look that deeply into it. If it's real, people generally treat it this way. Like, this is legit the third draft, which, okay, plausible enough. And even if not, it's just like a fun little thing to look at. So, let's talk about it. Because this story is similar to Crystal Skull, what we eventually got, because Crystal Skull reused a lot of elements from this script. Okay, so let me give you a summary. I'm gonna go a little bit in detail with some of the chapters just because there's interesting stuff in here. We start with a traditional transition from the Paramount logo to an actual mountain instead of what we got in Crystal Skull. We see old Indy, this is also the late 1950s. He's at a 1950s diner with his Russian companion Yuri. And then they go to a dig site, and there is already set up that Indy is semi-retired and done with adventuring, but he realizes Yuri is up to no good. He follows him. Yuri is working for the Russian government, and he's trying to buy plutonium and also a bag containing something that we don't know yet. There's a nice little action scene with the rocket sled, which is in Crystal Skull the movie as well. And all this does lead to the nuke scene with the fridge. The fridge is in here because apparently George Lucas demanded this be a thing. This opening is already so much better. One, we don't actually see alien shit. It's kept as a mystery for a while, which is nice. There is no mech, this double-crossing friend of Indy who constantly switches sides. This is just Yuri the Russian. He switches sides very early on, and he stays the antagonist for the rest of the story, pretty much. So that's a whole lot less annoying. After this, again, similar to the movie, Indy gets picked up by the FBI. They are worried that he was working for the Russians because he is pretty stupid, for accidentally working with Yuri. And unlike the movie, this FBI plot actually follows through the rest of the story, because we have one FBI agent called Turner who's interested in Indy, keeping an eye on him. Other agents are also doing that in this early part of the script. And there is actually a resolution to that at the end, which I will get to. Similar to the movie, Indy gets fired from the university and is replaced. He gives a nice little speech to his students as he's leaving the classroom, and then he's just completely pissed drunk, breaking into the museum. He's talking to a bronze statue of Marcus Brody, since, Brody has passed away, which is nice. We get a lot of artifacts from the old movies. There's the Cross of Coronado and the Golden Idol. And Indy, completely depressed and drunk, decides to steal the Golden Idol. But then he activates an alarm, and then the FBI guy that was supposed to follow him comes in, but gets shot dead by one of the Russians that's working for Yuri. There's another nice action scene in a clock tower and on the rooftop. And then Indy is on the run, because he knows there is a dead FBI agent, that's obviously also gonna be blamed on him. This is the part where we get a little cameo by Henry Jones Sr., supposed to be played by Sean Connery. And he's apparently living in the same house with Indy, which is nice. And Henry wants his son, to talk to the FBI to sort all of this out, but Indy knows he has to run away and investigate further what the fuck is actually going on with these Russians. And Henry ends up helping his son, get a head start of the FBI agents who come to the house, try to arrest him, but Indy is off to Manhattan. And based on some clues he found on the dead guy who was sent to kill him, he finds the bag from the opening, and he learns it contains a crystal skull. He is then mistaken for the guy who was supposed to pick up the crystal skull and is sent to Peru. There he meets his contact, which is indeed Marion Ravenwood, returning from Raiders of the Lost Ark. Marian is working with her husband, a archaeologist from Hungary called Peter Belasco, who is searching for the legendary City of the Gods, and they need the crystal skull for it. Peter Belasco is working with the Russians and Yuri, but Marian doesn't know this, and Indy also doesn't for most of the script until that plot twist is revealed. But we soon figure out that Peter Belasco has taken a prisoner, Oxley, an old friend of Henry Sr., who 2 years prior was also searching for the lost city, but he went completely insane. What is also nice, we get backstory for the lost city, which apparently grants you anything you dream of and you wish. And this is just nice, because I think it's just better setup for what is gonna happen in the third act. It makes it more clear what the artifact is and what the stakes are in the story. But now we are in Peru, there's some backstabbing. Apparently Frank Darabont really just wanted to use Nazi remnants as the villains instead of Russians. So in here we get a traitor called Dr. von Graun, who is basically a Nazi. And he betrays Indiana Jones and the gang and is working with Yuri and some locals, like the president that Yuri has teamed up with. After some more action scenes and hijinks, everyone eventually comes together. Yuri, his local terrorist companions, and Indy and Belasco's team. Peter Belasco then reveals that he's working with the Russians. They all find the lost city after falling down a couple of waterfalls. That scene is also in Crystal Skull. And then we get the ending with the full-on supernatural stuff. Okay, so inside this temple they find 13 headless alien skeletons. Indy reattaches the crystal skull to one of them, and then like a pod rises from the ground with a mummified alien in it, like a complete one. And then there is really weird psychedelic supernatural shit going on, where the alien is essentially, it's dead, but its mind is still alive, and it's speaking through Oxley. And a couple of our characters get lifted in the air, basically, and the alien asks them, like, okay, you can have whatever you dream of. And it's actually insane. One of them wishes he was, like, the deadliest being there is, so he turns into, like, a deadly, like, venomous frog and gets squashed. The Nazi guy, von Graun, wishes a return of the Nazis, and then he gets choked to death by Hitler. In his mind. There is no resurrected Hitler. And then Belasco wishes to, like, know everything, because he's also, like, a knowledge seeker, like Indy. And then his head explodes, basically. But Indy is let go of this procedure because all he wishes for is to be with Marian. Indy then shoots the crystal skull and it explodes, and basically the whole temple starts to collapse. Our characters have to escape. Indy goes back to, also save Oxley, who has come back to his senses. But then the mummified alien is, like, alive, and Indy also has to shoot him. And this is the one line I really don't like, because this script has a lot of, like, callback lines, fortune and glory, with different meanings. It's not bad, I actually like some of those. But when Indy is shooting the alien, he's doing a Will Smith from Independence Day. Welcome to Earth. If Independence Day didn't exist, this would be a fun line. As it is, it's just like, oh, is this an intentional reference? Because the reason Crystal Skull wasn't made earlier is because Spielberg was like, well, we can't do aliens now. Independence Day just released in cinemas. I don't know. This, not great. Anyway, all our characters escape in a nice little action scene. With them is also an FBI agent called Turner, who has been around for a while now. On the adventure, he was, like, with Yuri and his gang. Yuri is also still there. And then we get the scene when, basically underneath the ground, just the UFO is starting to lift up, go into the sky. But in this version, it comes crashing down and it fucking explodes. Like, it's a gigantic mushroom cloud afterwards. And that's nice. Because, okay, so the ending. Yuri, the Russian traitor, gets to live. He gets to escape. But Indy punches him in the face and basically just tells him, stay the fuck out of my country. That's maybe a little bit anticlimactic, but, okay. Then we get the ending. It's basically two little scenes. The first one, so because in this version the FBI plot actually has a payoff, because this guy Turner was following along and he also witnessed all of this shit. Indy is cleared of all charges and, the FBI is called back. He gets a medal by Eisenhower because the story that the FBI and the government came up with Indy foiled a Russian plan to use like a stolen nuclear bomb, and that's also how they explain the explosion in Peru. That's fun. That's very funny. And then we get the ending. Indy and Marion get married. And there is a little cameo by Sulla. And Henry Sr. is also there, and he's completely drunk and starts singing. And obviously Sulla is also singing. Indy and Marion are dancing while Henry Sr. is doing just terrible, awful singing. And then we close on a shot of Oxley, who is back to his senses after being mind-controlled and changed by the Crystal Skull and the alien force magic stuff. But then we see he's moving the cutlery on the table just with his mind. And we close with him looking into the stars, and that's it. There's a lot, and I mean a lot of good stuff in here. I think overall this script is good. I don't know if I would call it a great script, but it is so much better than Crystal Skull. First off, there's no secret child of Indy, which is good. This story is more streamlined. There is better setup for Indy being like retired and he has to go on an adventure. There is more of a thematic thing with like the Crystal Skull and this possibility to learn everything. And Indy actually being sucked into this magic ritual thing that's going on and only coming back because he wants Marion, because that's what he really is searching for in life now. This is decent. It also has nice stuff. There's a scene where in the jungle there's a snake coming up to Indy and he just grabs it and throws it away and he's just like, I've gotten over this fear a long time ago. But then he gets attacked by a gigantic snake that swallows him whole and he has to cut his way out of it. And then afterwards his fear of snakes is reinstated, which it is funny. It's not really explained why some of the animals later on in the script are like mutated and gigantic. It's not just snakes, there's like a bunch of them, including the ants. There is an ant attack scene in here, obviously. Again, a lot of this stuff, like these ideas, were demanded by George Lucas. Yeah, you can tell. But it's pretty fun. Again, there are a lot of callbacks in here, which it depends how it would have been done in the movie, if it was made based on this script. But I do like it. Like, there's also a little mention of Willie Scott. I think if we treat this as just like a throwback and like an epilogue to the trilogy with some throwbacks, obviously, I think this is just enough references and throwbacks to not be annoying. Like, I can see all of this working on screen in a charming way. So in conclusion, yeah, it was a pretty bad decision by George Lucas to throw this one in the trash. Like, imagine you were getting Frank Darabont, who is like one of the underrated greats, like Shawshank Redemption, The Green Mile, The Mist, and he wrote some of the best episodes of the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles. That's why he got the job to write this script. And then you reject it, and then you release Crystal Skull as it is. Oof. And again, I don't even think this is like the greatest script ever written, but it is just objectively better than what we got.